So let's talk about Star Trails. Star Trails is a brand new feature that GoPro added on the GoPro Hero 11. So if you've got the brand new GoPro Hero 11, it's built into the GoPro camera. You can do it right on the camera with one push, and I'm going to quickly go over those settings. But if you don't own a GoPro Hero 11, the good news is you can do this using other GoPros as well. And in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do this with entirely free software. So if you haven't seen my complete guide to creating night lapses on GoPros before, there is a section of that I recommend you check out. I've linked to it above. In that section, I talk about the few basic tools that I recommend having for a night lapse. And those tools will apply for Star Trails as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go through how to do Star Trails on the GoPro Hero 11. And then next, I'm going to go more in depth on how to do it on any other GoPro. All right, so here's how we're gonna do this on the Hero 11. Power it on, and we're gonna navigate to time-lapse mode. When we get to time-lapse mode, you're gonna click down here, and you're gonna scroll up, and it's gonna be Star Trails, the second one down. So we're gonna click the pencil icon here, and there's not a lot of settings to adjust here, but there's a few key settings I wanna mention so that you get the Star Trail that you would like. So for the trail length, there's a couple options here. There's short, there's long, and there's max. So basically, these are essentially what they mean here. So short is gonna be those shorter trails. They're gonna last a little bit in the sky, and then it's gonna capture new stars and start new trails on those. So those are gonna be the shortest result. The long, which is my personal favorite, it's kind of an in-between of the short and the max. The long is gonna carry out for a few seconds longer in the sky, so it's gonna be longer trails before they stop tracking. And then the max is going to be the entire Star Trail. So if you have this going all night, the trail is going to be continuous for the entire Star Trail video. I generally recommend playing around with this a little bit, seeing what you like. I recommend long as a good starting point, and then I recommend you try out max as well. But long, I find, is one of my favorites, long or max. Short, they're just a little bit too short. So I do prefer long. For the resolution, I recommend just doing the highest you can on here. I recommend the 5.3K. And then if you want a video you can share straight out of the camera, do 16:9. But if you're going to edit this later on in a video editing software, then do the 4:3, because then you have a little bit of flexibility this way if you want to frame the video or if you want to have it moving as the night progresses. So it gives you a little more flexibility. The reason I don't recommend 4K is because you can get better resolution in 5.3K, and then you can export the finished product as 4K. And it's gonna look extra crisp at that 4K. And for the lens, your only option is wide. You do have to stick with wide. The same thing with format of video and interval, that's also grayed out. For shutter, you do have a couple options. If it's a very dark night sky and you want to see the most stars possible, keep it at 30 seconds. If there is a moon in the sky, then you may want to set it to 10 seconds down here. But generally, I recommend doing the 30 seconds. 30 is going to give you the best results. For the scheduled capture and duration, I recommend leaving those as they are. For the timer, keep it at 3 seconds. That way, when you hit this, it's going to wait to start for 3 seconds. And that's going to help ensure that you don't have the camera wobbling at the start of your Star Trails. And under ProTune, most of these settings are going to be grayed out. The only ones that you're going to have available to change are the ISO min and max. And I highly recommend keeping those both to 800. That is the default that GoPro has set here. And that is going to give you the best results without that noise or grain in the footage. So those are the settings for Star Trails on the Hero 11. When you're ready to stop your Star Trail, all you have to do is hit this button and it's going to stop it. And then it's going to have it available in a single .mp4 file. So that file will be ready to take from your camera and share or edit before sharing. So if you don't own the Hero 11 and instead you own something like the Hero 10, I'm going to show you the entire process of doing Star Trails with the Hero 10 or older. First thing we're going to do on the Hero 10 is make sure the settings are all good to go before we start filming. Power it on here, and we're going to toggle over to time-lapse mode and click here, And then we're gonna go to the night lapse mode and we're gonna click on the pencil icon. So when we get into this mode, what we want to do for star trails is we need to do it in the photo mode. It cannot be done in the video mode. The video mode will not work. It does have to be in the photo mode. For interval, keep that set to auto. Lens, that will be grayed out. Only wide is available in photo mode. For shutter, if you have a really dark sky, do the 30 seconds. But if there's a moon in the sky, I recommend doing 20 or 15. But if there's no moon in the sky, do the 30 seconds. It's going to give you the best results. For the output, you want to make sure it's set to RAW. When you do RAW, it's going to give you the .gpr and the .jpg files. So there will be duplicates for each photo. But to get the very best results, you're going to want to have those RAW files that we can edit to later on. That's going to bring out more star details, and ultimately it's going to make better star trails. Scheduled capture, you can keep that off. Duration, no limit. Timer, set that to 3 seconds. And then under ProTune, we want the white balance set to 3200K. We want the ISO minimum set to 800. We want the ISO max set to 800. We want sharpness low, and we want color flat. And the shortcuts down here will not apply. What we're going to do with the older GoPros, the Hero 10 and older, is we're going to do a night lapse. So again, with this, I recommend having it plugged in with an external power pack, and of course on a tripod. And you're going to want to run this night lapse all night long if possible. That's going to give you the most photos to put together, and it's going to give you some really incredible star trail results. So once you've captured those photos on your Hero 10 or older GoPro, it's time to dive in and edit those and put them together into a star trail. This part is by far the most fun. So let's talk about the software titles that you're going to need. The first one here that you want to grab, it's completely free. It's Adobe Digital Negative Converter, otherwise known as the Adobe DNG Converter. And what this does is this converts your .gpr files from your GoPro directly to DNG. Now DNG is simply a more compatible format of that raw file. And unlike programs like Lightroom, the free software we're going to use cannot read those .gpr files, so it does need a more universal format, which is a .dng. If you are going to use JPEG files from your GoPro, you do not need to do this step, you can skip it. But I do recommend doing this step because the raw files will give you better results. If you're on Mac OS, you're going to click download here. And if you're on Windows, you're going to click right here. I'm on Windows, so I'm going to download it. Once it's done downloading, we're going to install it. Accept the agreement, click next. And it's going to install. Next piece of software we're going to need to get is Raw Therapy. So for this software, it makes it nice and easy to download. It's got the options right here at the top. So I'm on Windows, so I'm going to download 64-bit Windows. Then when that's finished downloading, we're going to install that as well. The third piece of software we need to get is called StarStax. We're going to click download and installation right here. And then it's going to take us to Mac OS or Windows options. And this one is going to download as a zip file. So once this is finished downloading, what you want to do, you want to extract the zip file, and then you have to run an executable within the zip file. I'll show you how to do that because this is a little bit tricky. It's not the same as installing software. It's a little bit different. For this one, I put the zip file right here on the desktop. So you're going to right click on it and you're going to go to extract all. And we're going to tell it to show the extracted files when complete. And it's going to show the folder there. You're going to want to double click on it. And you're going to want to open the StarStax-0.71 here. And then when you want to run this, you want to go all the way to the bottom. And you're going to open the starstax.exe. And when you open it, it's going to come up to a program that looks like this right here. So we're not at that stage yet, but as soon as we get there, we'll go through this as well. Finally, the final product that you need to have installed is DaVinci Resolve. So I've already got that installed down here. If you don't have it already installed, it's real easy to find. Go to Google, type in DaVinci Resolve. And at present time making this video, it is version 18. You can click right here. And you're going to want to do the free download now. The paid product for $295 one-time fee is a fabulous product. It's got a lot of extra features in it. But the nice thing is the free product is very powerful. It can do everything we need and then some, quite a bit more than what we need. You would just click here where it says free download, and then it's going to give you the options here. You're going to want to do Resolve 18 unless you want to buy the product, in which case you would do Resolve Studio. So click here depending on the OS you're running, and that's going to download and install as well if you don't already have it. It will require you to put in your info here, your first, last name, your email, your phone, your country, and your city. And then you would click register and download. So this one I do already have installed, so I'm not going to run through that here. But once you download it, you just double click on it to install, and it's going to install the product. So now that we've captured the photos on the GoPro with night mode, it's time to get them off the GoPro and onto our computer. So you can do this one of two ways. You can hook up the GoPro to the computer via the USB-C port, or you can take out the micro SD card and put it into an SD card reader, or if your computer has a micro SD card slot on it, then you can put it in that. In my case, my desktop does not have the slot, so I use this USB reader. I find the copy speeds can be a little bit faster than hooking up the GoPro directly, but not a huge difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this into my computer here. And we're going to go through the first part of the process with the Adobe DNG tool. So if you decided to do JPEG only and not RAW, you can skip this step, and you can also skip the next step. So you would go ahead to the Star Stacks chapter at the bottom. But if you did the RAW photos, I'm going to show you that process here. So what we want to do at this point is we want to open the Adobe DNG tool, and we're going to select folder. So when we select the folder, we are going to select the USB drive that I just put in. So you're going to open this DCIM folder. We want to select the folder here. And you want to select include images contained within subfolders. And for the location to save the converted images to, we want to click Save in a New Location. And in this case, I have already set up a folder for us to save these to. So the folder name is on my desktop, and it's called Night Lapse. We're going to select, and then we can set up a naming convention for the images. What you're generally going to want to do is you're going to want to select 4-digit serial number. This is going to be a good numbering scheme that's going to play well later on when we import the photos. And we're going to click Convert. And what this is going to do is it's going to convert these. It's going to give a little countdown up here. And right here is all of our original .gpr files that are being converted. So we're going to let this finish here, and then we're going to go on to step number 2, which is going to involve raw therapy. So I'm going to fast forward here so you don't have to watch 1188 photos convert, but converting the GPR to DNG is not a super intense process. It generally goes pretty quickly. We're going to hit OK now that it's finished, and we can exit. So our files are going to be here in this Night Lapse folder now. As you can see, we've got all of our DNGs. So we're going to go on to step 2 now, which is opening raw therapy. We're going to do a mass edit of these files to bring out as many details as possible, and then we're going to export them to JPEG. All right, so now that we're in raw therapy, what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to those DNG files that we just created. So in this case, I stored them in my profile on the desktop. So once we get to that folder and double click on it where it says Night Lapse, you can see here it imported the 1188 files. You can see the 1188 files right up here, and then you can see all of them through here. So what we want to do is we want to edit one of these, and then the settings that we edit on the one, we're going to be able to apply to all of the rest of the 1188, which makes it nice and easy. So generally you're going to want to pick one somewhere near the middle. So if we divide 1188 by 2, it's going to be about 594. So I'm going to select 594. And we're going to edit this photo right here. So that takes us down to the editor when we double click. And we don't have to change a lot of things in here. There's just a couple that we want to change. The exposure compensation here, we want to bump that up. This is going to depend on your lighting when you did this. Like if it was really dark, you're gonna wanna bump it up a good bit. If there was some lighting from the moon or something else, like urban lighting, you may not have to change it at all. In this case, it was a very dark sky, so I'm gonna take this up to 1. You can see when I take it up to 1, it brings out a lot more stars that we didn't see previously. This right here is definitely a planet. I believe that's Saturn. So we could even try bumping this up a little bit more. Let's do 1.5. 1.5 looks pretty good, but I think it brings out a little bit too much of the noise. So we're gonna go back a little bit to 1.25 for this one. I like that there. And down here, sometimes you'll want to adjust the contrast or the saturation a little bit. In this case, we definitely don't want to take the contrast down. We can bring it up a little, but see, if you bring it up really far, it looks really terrible. So with contrast, in this case, I'm gonna bring it up ever so slightly. We're gonna do 5 for that. And then saturation, it's a little bit flat here, which is how we shot the photos. So I'm gonna bring up the saturation a little bit. It's gonna bring out a few more of those colors. Not that there's a lot of colors in the sky, but there are a few there. So we're gonna do 20 for saturation. And then the rest of these settings, we pretty much can leave the same. So what we wanna do is we wanna make sure we've selected the photo up here that we've just edited, and we wanna right click, and we want to go to processing profile operations, and we wanna click copy. When we do that, it's going to copy all of these settings we just changed on this photo. And then what we're gonna do after we copy, we're gonna do Control A, and it's gonna select all of these photos. And then what you wanna do is you wanna right click on one of these, and you wanna do processing profile operations, and you wanna click paste. And when we click paste, it's going to take all of the settings we just changed here, and you can see it's going to apply to all of them. So now if we scroll left or right here, you're gonna see that the color and everything else is gonna look the same on these, which is great. That's what we want. So all of our adjustments are showing here now on all 1,188 photos. So the next thing we wanna do is we want to export these. So we're gonna go back here, we're gonna do Control A, and we're gonna right click, and we're gonna do put to queue. So that's then gonna load these up into the queue right here. And we are going to proceed to export these. So a couple things we wanna make sure of. We wanna make sure that our save to folder is selected properly. So I'm going to go here, I'm gonna go to desktop, we're gonna go to Night Lapse, and when we click on Night Lapse, we're gonna click on the new folder symbol up here, name the folder export, and select create. And we're gonna confirm that the file path is good here. It is. We're gonna click open. And then for the file format up here, you wanna make sure it's set to JPEG 8-bit. And JPEG quality, I recommend putting it all the way up to 100. And for subsampling, set it to best quality. And then select save processing parameters with image. Then once we've done all of those, we're gonna go here and we're gonna click on this little circle icon right here. And that is going to start the queue processing. So as these process, over here on the side, you're gonna see this counting down. So it's gonna take a little bit to do this. If you've ever used Adobe Lightroom before, this would be the equivalent of exporting in there. And as you know, that can take quite a while, especially when we're working with raw photos. Even if you have a newer, faster computer, it is still gonna take a while. So at this point, I recommend stepping away, give it about an hour to complete. And then when you come back, those photos should all be ready, and then you can go to the next step. So if you need to pause this video, we'll then resume that when these are ready. All right, now that our export in raw therapy is finished, we're gonna close out of raw therapy, and we're gonna go on to the next step. Now the next step is going into StarStax. So StarStax, we've got the folder here in our desktop that I showed you earlier, and we need to navigate through this and go into the StarStax-0.71, and then we're gonna go all the way down to the bottom, and we're gonna run starstax.exe. When it's opened, we are going to navigate to our photos and we're gonna add them. So it says drop images here, but what's usually easiest for me at least is go to open images. And we're gonna navigate to our Night Lapse folder and our export. And we're going to do Control A. It's gonna select all 1,188 and we're gonna click open. It's gonna list them all here along the side for input images. And what we need to do here is there's a couple options that we need to adjust on the right-hand side. So over here under Preferences, this Blending tab, the first thing we want to make sure of is that we have gap filling selected. And if you hover over it, it shows you what all these different options mean. The one that I recommend for star trails is to do gap filling. In this next mode here, Comet mode is really important. So if you don't do Comet mode and you do star trails, it's going to do the entirety of this. So it's going to be the equivalent to the Hero 11 with the setting of max, which means the star trails are going to fill in the entire thing, and they're not going to have that comet look to them, where the actual star is slightly bigger than the trail. If you would like the Comet mode, which I really like the Comet mode, if you click on this, you can adjust the length of the trails. So I have done a bunch of different experimenting with this. I've done short trails all the way up to long. Long trails here is about the equivalent of long trails on the Hero 11 Black, and I kind of like that setting a lot. It looks pretty cool, as you can see here with the example I'm showing. But if you go down here to about medium, this is about the equivalent of short for the trails on the Hero 11. If you go down to short in this particular program, I find that it generally just ends up looking like a night lapse. There's not really noticeable, distinguishable trails there. So I don't recommend doing short, but I do recommend doing either long or here medium. And like I said earlier, if you don't want the Comet mode, you can just uncheck that. So for this particular one, let's do the Comet mode and let's select long for the trail length. And one other setting you want to change down here is you want to select save after each step. And it's important to do that cumulative saving because this is going to be what we need in order to make the video time lapse of this later on. If you don't select that, you're not going to be able to use those photos in the final step to make the video night lapse. They're just going to be static photos. And the nice thing about this too is if you want a static photo at the very end or throughout this night lapse, you can select any of those 1188 photos if you just want a photo with some star trails that you can share. And for the image name settings here, it's important that you delete this here. So you want to have that blank. And then for the start at, type in 1. This is going to be important for the proper file naming so that later on, when we import these into DaVinci Resolve, these will be detected properly and they'll detect as a time lapse instead of individual photos. That will be important. After you do that, go here to Browse. In our night lapse folder, we want to right click, we want to do New, and we want to entitle this Star Trail. We once again want to save our photos to a separate folder. So we're going to select that. Now, if we go over to the Images tab, there's one setting here that I like to change where it says Use Compression. I like to uncheck that. I don't like to use compression. I want these to be full quality photos. And those are the only settings we need to change. So we are now ready to go. So we're going to go back over here to the left, and right here, this fourth button over is Start Processing. We're going to click on that. And it's going to start exporting these. And as it does this processing, you're going to be able to see a preview right here of what it's going to look like. So that's pretty cool. And in this particular night lapse, Polaris, the North Star, is located over here in this region right here. So I think that's actually Polaris right there. So we're going to see everything rotating around this right here, which is super cool. And that is a meteor right there that I saw pop up. So we're going to let this go once again, and this is going to take a little while. It's going to show us our progress down here at the bottom. And I find in this program for 1,000 images, it typically takes about 20 to 30 minutes to export all of those, and then we are good to go again. So we're going to let this do the exporting, and then I'll come back to this when it's done. And then we'll go to the final and last step, which is putting this together in DaVinci Resolve. Our photos are all finished exporting from StarStax, and now we're on to the final step. We are almost there. We're going to close out of StarStax, and we're going to open DaVinci Resolve. And we are going to create a new project. For the project name, let's call it Star Trails. We're going to click Create. And first thing we want to do is we want to set up our timeline. So we're going to go down here to the lower right, and we're going to click on that gear. So for the master settings, we want our timeline resolution to be 4K. And we want to go down to where it says 3840 by 2160 Ultra HD. We want to select that. Pixel ratio you can leave alone. The timeline frame rate, we want to keep that at 24. And then the playback frame rate would also be 24. These settings down here, you do not need to change any of these. These are fine to leave as their defaults. All of the rest of these you can leave as their defaults as well. And the rest of these settings we should be good to leave as they are. We're going to click Save. All right, next thing we want to do is we want to go to the Media tab right here, and we're going to import our photos. So we're going to go to File, Import, Media. We want to navigate to the folder where we have those exported files from StarStax. So we're going to go to Night Lapse, we're going to go to Star Trail, and here we want to make sure we select Control A. It's going to select all 1188 of those, and we're going to click Open. And DaVinci Resolve is smart enough because of how we named them. This program can tell that these are all sequential. So it puts all of those individual photos together already in a video file for us. So next thing we want to do is we want to go over to the Edit tab at the bottom. And we want to drag this and drop it onto our timeline. We're going to drop it right there. And let's do a preview of this. That is incredible. That looks really good. That is a lot of stars in that night lapse as well. Lots and lots of star trails. And really neat having Polaris visible here and seeing everything circulate around it. Very cool. I like how some of these brighter stars really stand out there as well. So there's one problem that we need to fix before we export. You'll notice this is almost square, and that's because on the particular GoPro that I took this with, we used the photo aspect ratio, but not the video aspect ratio. So we need to convert this to 16:9. Otherwise, your finished product is going to have these black bars on the left and right side. So the way we're going to fix this is we're going to go back to our project settings and we're going to make one tweak. So under the image scaling tab, it says mismatched resolution files. The default is scale entire image to fit, but we want to select scale full frame with crop. We're going to click Save. And then it's going to automatically adjust that so that it's 16:9. And so now when we take a look at this, we've got it right there. Now, of course, we are missing some on our bottom now, down here and at the top because it's been cropped. So there is a way where we can add some movement. If you wanted to start on the bottom end and then progress up, or if you want to start at the top and then pan down as the night lapse occurs. So I'm going to show you how to adjust that as well in case you would like to do that. Otherwise, this just basically centers it and it fills it in all the way from left and right to get rid of the black bars on the sides. But again, you do lose the top and the bottom of this when you do that. So in order to make that adjustment, we're going to make sure our clip is selected here, and we're going to go up to Inspector. And Inspector, what we're going to do is we're going to add a keyframe at the beginning of this clip, and then we're going to add one at the end. So all we need to do here is on Transform, we need to click on this diamond right here. We want to adjust the position of this clip. So we don't want to adjust the X at all, because you see if you do that, it brings back the black bars. So we want to keep that at 0. But the Y is what we want to adjust. So if you click on this once and drag, if you drag left, it's going to take it all the way up to the top, and then you can see the black bar up there. So we obviously don't want that visible. So we're going to drag that until it's not visible, which in this case, it's going to be right around -380. So then what we want to do now is we want to go all the way to the end of the clip, and we want to make another keyframe. Now it fades to white at the end, and we probably don't want it all the way to the end where it's just completely white. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag the ending to end right there. So you want to make sure you have the very last frame of this selected, and you're going to click play and just make sure it's at the very end. And then what you're going to do is you're going to click here again on the diamond. And this time we're going to drag in the opposite direction. We're going to drag to the right, and then we're going to go all the way down until we see the black bar. Then we're going to go back up until that disappears. So this should be about 380 in the positive direction as well. So now that we've done that, if you go back to the beginning, you're going to have motion in this. And motion can really take these star trails or night lapse to the next level. So now if we click play, see how it's panning along, how this is slowly moving at the same time while it's rotating. That looks very cool. So I recommend doing that with the star trails if you would like to. It makes it a little bit more interesting, especially when it's a longer star trail like this. Now, of course, if you wanted to speed this up or slow it down, you can do that as well. The way you would do that is you would right click and you would go to change clip speed. So the default speed is 100, you can change it to 200, and that's gonna make it twice as fast. We're gonna click change. And the nice thing is this will maintain your numbers you put in there too. It's gonna make everything twice as fast. So now if you do it, it's gonna go at double the speed. Oftentimes I like doubling the speed on these. The default speed can be a little bit too slow, so I'm actually gonna keep it at 200%. And of course, depending on how you're using it in a project, if you want it to last 5 to 10 seconds, you might need to do 400% or 500 or even faster. And one other thing, if you want to add some sound, you would do that down here for the audio. You would go to File, Import, Media. You would import whatever audio you have. You would drag it down here and you would adjust it to match the duration of your clip. For this particular one, I'm not going to add audio because our focus is on the visuals of this, but that is how you would do that. So we're ready to export this now. So we're gonna go down here to Deliver, and we're gonna give this a name. We're gonna call it Star Trails. And we're gonna export to the location we'd like to put this at. So we're gonna go to Desktop, and let's export it right to the desktop. We're gonna click Save. And for the format, you wanna adjust this. QuickTime is a default, but we wanna set it to MP4. MP4 is gonna be the most compatible, and we're just gonna confirm everything looks good here. Quality, make sure it's set to best. These should default to the resolution and frame rate over timeline. You shouldn't have to change those. And for the encoding profile and keyframes, keep all of that set as well. And now you're gonna click Add to Render Queue, and it's gonna show up right up here. And then you're gonna click Render All. And this is gonna go pretty quickly. It's got about 30 seconds left, and it's gonna give you a preview here while it renders. And again, all of this was done with entirely free software. It is impressive what you can do on this free software. And it is done. So we're gonna close out of DaVinci Resolve. Let's check out our preview. That looks fantastic. So that is how you make star trails using any GoPro. And of course, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you have the Hero 11, you can do all of this in camera. You don't have to do any editing. But even if you do have the Hero 11, if you prefer to do it the manual way that I just demonstrated, you can still do that in the Hero 11 simply by using the night lapse mode and doing the photos. And I hope you have a great time creating star trails with your GoPro action camera. Until we talk again, happy GoProing.